If the STI and the Evo had a baby, it would be this car. This is my 2017 Ford Focus RS. This is a Mark 6 GTI. It is not mine. I chipped it. No. So, if you're in the market for a used STI or a used Evo or even a new STI, you might want to consider the Focus RS. The Focus RS is probably the most slept on car in America. Maybe it's because of the head gasket problem that Ford knew about. Now I gotta give Ford a little bit of credit because they actually did do the recall on a lot of these cars. The problem was some of the owners still experienced problems even after the head gasket was replaced. So a little fun fact about this car actually had 3 generations, the Mark I, the Mark II, and the Mark III. The Mark III is the only one that made it to US market. That's just one of the really cool things about this car. Legendary cars like the RX-7 had, I think, 2 or 3 generations, even the Toyota Supra, and even the legendary 300ZX had a couple generations in the US. So here's another fun fact. This is actually not the world's first Starbucks. Hey, I just had a quick question. I'm gonna order coffee too. Can I get a? Is this the world's first Starbucks, or is there another one?
So the first one that was built was, you see that stop sign?
Uh-huh.
It's on that corner, but it burnt.
Oh, this is technically the first one,
yeah.
But it's not the first location.
Yeah.
Gotcha, there you go. So what I'm trying to say is just because it's not the first, doesn't mean it's not cool as fuck. Because clearly, this car, it's cool as fuck. If we think about what makes some of those 90s JDM cars a classic, cars like the RX-7, the Supra, the 300ZX, and even the S14 240SX, we'd probably say a lot of them had turbos. A lot of them were 300 horsepower. But what really defines a rare JDM for me is exactly that. It's rare. So what is it exactly about this car that some enthusiasts just don't like? Now, I'd say it's the color, but this color is fire. It is fucking fire. So if you think about how often we see STIs and Evos and even how easy it is to import like RX-7 Supras and even like Skyline GTRs, especially in the Seattle area, they're kind of like becoming a dime a dozen, and this is crazy to me. Now think about how often you've actually seen one of these cars. For me, it's very rare. I know of one white one and one blue one in my area that I kind of consistently see, but overall, I don't see very many of these. All right, I had to stop and admire this car real quick. Look at this, it's an ND Miata. I haven't really been this close to one in person, and I don't know why. Maybe I just haven't like taken the time to check it out. What a beautiful 2-seater rear-wheel drive. I love that color too. I don't know if that's a gray or a white, or if it's just the reflection in the sky. Wow, look at this. I know I keep comparing this car to legendary JDMs like the RX-7 Supra, 300ZX, 3000 GT, all those legendary JDMs, and I know that this is not a JDM car. I should be comparing this car to American legends. After all, this is a Ford, and I don't know how much more American you can get than a Ford. But the only other comparison that I can think of that's 110% American and is not a V8, it's the SRT4, the legendary neon SRT4. When the Dodge Neon SRT4 came out, it blew away some of the cars it wasn't even competing against. Cars like the Evos, the STIs, and even some of the competitors back in the day that tried to compete in the US market, the Chevy Cobalt SS or the Saturn Redline. Back then, the SRT4 wasn't rare. Nowadays, you don't really see it as much. But when I think of an iconic 4-banger turbo from America, I can't help but to think of the SRT4. The SRT4 was hugely popular with enthusiasts because of its $1 to power ratio. That little front wheel drive neon on steroids was an iconic American legend accepted in the import enthusiast community. The SRT4 just had a reputation of just destroying anything and everything that you paid over 30 grand for. But at the end of the day, for me, SRT4 is still just a front wheel drive turbo car. And unlike the Focus RS, it may have looked like an import, but it definitely was not an import. So if you're actually a fan of this car, you already know that this is actually an import. In America, this car actually didn't have the space to be made on the production line at the Ford warehouse, where they assembled the Ford Focus and the turbo version of the Ford Focus, which is the Focus ST. What Ford did instead was they had the RS built where the legendary 1 and 2 was built, in Germany. So in reality, the Ford Focus RS Mark III is actually a European import that was imported to the United States. It took you guys 3 versions to finally bring it to the US. Congratulations, Ford. You actually did something right. Now, I'm not saying that this car belongs in a museum or anything. I'm just saying it just deserves a little bit more respect than it gets. And I really feel like this is gonna be one of those cars that people are gonna sleep on, and one day they're just gonna be worth a ton of money. At least that's my hope. If you take into account everything that I said about what makes a car legendary, a lot of it is kind of arbitrary. Sometimes it's not about reliability. The rotary engine in the RX-7 has been known to be unreliable. I've heard a lot of that has to do with the owners not properly knowing how to take care of a rotary engine, but I feel like the same can be said about any car, really. At the end of the day, I think what makes a car truly special and truly unique is the owner that appreciates the car for what it is. It could be something as plain and everyday as a Honda Civic, or as rare as like a Mark IV Toyota Supra. What makes a car truly special and legendary is in the eye of the beholder. But in all honesty, this car is just the best fucking car in the world. And if you don't own one, you fucking suck.